Alex Belfield.
Brent Barrett, how are you?
Hey Alex, how you doing?
I'm really well, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Now let's talk about this musical because it's incredible, and what a year it's been for Chicago, because of course we had the film. That's got to have impacted on the musical. You sell out every single night, don't you?
Well, you know, Chicago was into its 7th year, and it was playing at the Schubert Theater, and they just moved to the Ambassador Theater last January. And since the movie came out, business has been like 101%. It's been incredible. Normally you would anticipate the opening of a film to kill the Broadway show, but this has done just the opposite. I think now people come into the theater knowing what they're coming to see. Before that, even though this musical opened 20 years ago, originally in 1975, they didn't know what Chicago was. And until the movie came out, the vast majority of the audience didn't know what to expect when they came to see the show. But now, I don't know if there's anyone that hasn't seen the musical Chicago, or at least have an idea of what it is. So they come with a whole different expectation and a whole mindset, and they know the songs now. And so we're actually getting a younger audience now.
The thing I love about this show is the fact that it's quite pure, in a sense that it doesn't distract you with huge scenery and sets. The lighting is used very well in this, and the costumes are great. However, it doesn't distract you. Some of the shows in the West End and on Broadway seem to do that. It's more about the spectacle of the show than actually the content of the songs and the talent of the singers. And Bob Fosse, who put this together, was a real genius in doing that and keeping the story pure, wasn't he?
This version of Chicago was staged by Anne Reinking, who was a kind of a disciple of Bob Fosse. She was in the movie All That Jazz. She was in Dancing originally, and so she knows his style intimately. And it was directed by Walter Bobby, and they came together and did a concert version of it on Encores, which was this concert series that they do at City Center every spring, and that's where this incarnation of the show came from. But the thing about it, it's, as you say, it's not a spectacle. It's when you come to the show, you focus on the music, you focus on the characters, and depending on who's doing the the dynamic of the show changes. You know, depending on who's performing the different characters, because it's almost like a musical vaudeville. Everything happens down in one. It's very funny. It's very very biting, cynical, and it's very clever and very sexy. You know, you say, you know, there are a lot of costume changes. And actually, there aren't a lot of costumes. They're very skimpy and very revealing.
Although we don't see a lot of you, do we, in terms of your body, really?
No, I'm in a tuxedo the entire evening. And after, I tell you, because I was in London last year doing Kiss Me Kate in the West End, and when I wasn't on stage, I was changing costumes. So this is such a pleasure to be able just to sit in one costume the entire evening.
For those who don't know, if people have been in a box or something, locked away, and have not heard about Chicago, tell us, what is it?
Chicago. Well, it's the story of these two merry murderesses. One, Velma Kelly, who has killed her sister and her husband because they were having an affair. Roxy Hart, the other woman, is Roxy Hart, who has killed her lover, who was walking out on her. And it's about the sensationalism of the murder trial and how people become instant celebrities. And I think when it was done originally in the 70s, we hadn't been through the O.J. Simpson trial. We hadn't been through the Menendez trial. So all of a sudden, when this reemerged 7 years ago, the audience was ready to sink their teeth into the show.
The thing I loved about it, watching it again the day before last, is that it's so appropriate today, tomorrow, yesterday. Every news story that you see, there are elements of this musical in. The point being that people showbiz up, no matter how sick the story is, no matter how dramatic or sad or funny or whatever. Showbiz is about publicity, and this is what this musical's about, really, isn't it?
Well, it's not, you know, it's about celebrity, not even showbiz as much as that. Because this original story was written by Maureen Dallas Watkins, I believe that was her name, who wrote the original novel, and that was back in the 1920s in Chicago, about a murder trial. So I think it just shows that no matter what time you're in, you're dealing with the same sensationalism in the press, and certainly there's plenty of that today.
They never seem to change the press, do they? They'll always find an angle somewhere to make it more sexy as a story.
Yeah, everything has to be more interesting. They can't. I don't know. That's the problem with it, with all the journalism today. It's not. They're not just telling the story. They have to, as you say, make it as sexy as they possibly can, so people will tune in and they'll get the ratings.
Well, they'd hate to let fact get in the way of entertainment, wouldn't they?
Let's not go there, shall we? Our country's going through plenty, enough trouble with that right now.
Well, I can leave in a few days, so I don't need to worry. You see, we're here today then at Chicago, and you've got the best role in the musical, really, haven't you? You're the guy who manipulates everyone.
I think I do. This is the guy that everybody wants to be. I kind of think of Billy as a cross between an evangelist and a used car salesman. And because he just, he goes out there and he is so smart and knows exactly what to do to manipulate the press, to manipulate the characters involved. Once he comes on that show, he drives the show along. He's making the decisions, and it's really up to him to propel the show forward.
Can I congratulate you on your performance? Because I've seen a lot of people do this role. In the West End, we've had celebrities doing the part that you play. And the problem with celebrities they are a name and they will bring people into a theatre, but they can't necessarily sing or act. It could be written for you, this role, because you look like Billy Flynn, as it should be, really. Your voice, first of all, did that come naturally? I can't imagine that you were trained to sing like that. There must have been some God-given talent there.
Oh, definitely. I've been singing since I was 3. And certainly it's matured over the years. Fortunately, I've had some good teachers along the way, and here we are today.
Is there anything else you could have done, or was it showbiz or nothing?
No, I think this was the only thing. Of course, when I was growing up, because I grew up in a very small town out in western Kansas, and I didn't even know what Broadway was, or that you could do this as a living. So it wasn't until I got into college and I started doing plays and musicals in school that I decided that's what I wanted to do.
You mentioned earlier you were in the West End recently in Kiss Me Kate, which was a great show, and I went to see it and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Did you enjoy your time there?
I loved it. I was in London 10 years ago doing Grand Hotel at the Dominion Theatre, and I was there for about 6 months. And this time I was in London for a year. And I love it. I've got a lot of wonderful friends over there, so it's as much an excuse to go over and catch up with my friends as it is to work.
What do you make of the West End as an entity opposed to Broadway? Which is better?
It's apples and oranges. What, do you want me to say something?
I'll give you my opinion. I love the West End and I love what they do. Yeah. But I think there's a slight edge on the quality of Broadway. I have to be honest with you, and I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the West End. Please don't think I'm saying that. All the performers are brilliant in the West End, or they wouldn't be there. But the stars like yourself over here, you just shine. It's as if you were born to do it. Do you agree, or am I talking nonsense?
Well, I think it's possible our society is just more extroverted. So that might be what you're referring to.
Very diplomatic. I appreciate that. Brent, you've just done this thing for BBC Radio 3, haven't you? And it's going to be on soon.
It's going to be on very soon. Actually, I'm not sure what the date of it is. It was for BBC, I think, Radio 3, and it's called New York, New York. It's an evening of songs about New York. It was with Kim Criswell and myself and the Maida Vale Singers and the BBC Concert Orchestra.
What is it like singing with a band like the BBC Concert Orchestra?
Oh, it was spectacular. It was wonderful to have that sound and that energy coming behind you and just lifting you up.
I imagine that is the greatest feeling of all for any performer, to stand there with a live band. You can sing to backing tracks, anybody can do that, but to have the feeling of a live orchestra behind you, and they're doing it for you, must be the greatest A, compliment, and B, thrill in the world. Well,
there's nothing that compares with doing it live. I mean, you can have backing tracks, but then there's no spontaneity or life to it. It's like, there's a click track, the time, and there's no chance for it to live and breathe.
I've said to a lot of the performers who I've spoken to for this program how they cope with the day in, day out syndrome of being in a musical. You're saying the same lines in the same order, the same songs in the same order. It's a different audience, but it's the same thing. There's no room really to change anything, because there can't be with an orchestra and with cast and things like that. How do you mentally cope with keeping it fresh and giving your best every single performance?
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the other people you're working with on stage, too. And certainly the conductor comes in having gone through his day, and depending on what kind of a mood he's in, tempos could be faster, they could be slower. And everybody have those outside influences that affect what their performance is that night. So if you're lucky enough, and I've been very fortunate over the years to really work with some great people and every night is different. I mean, someone could sit out in front of the house and watch every show that same week, and it may not be as perceptible to them, but you have to come in with what you've got that day. That's what makes it live.
The thing I like about this show, it has some of that vaudeville comedy where things go wrong that probably go wrong every night. Not that I'm giving things away. You don't get that in things like The Lion King or Aida, which are brilliant musicals. They're too tight for anything like that. And you look as if you're genuinely having fun. Can you fake those laughs night in, night out? I suspect you can't, because you genuinely look like you're entertaining each other.
Well, yeah, we do in this show. I mean, certainly to a greater or lesser degree every night. As you said, we're saying the same lines, we're basically doing the same movements, but there is a real spontaneity to it as far as how you do it. So another Billy Flynn will come in and do something totally different than I do.
Congratulations again on your performance. I thought it was absolutely incredible. You looked as if you were made for the role, and you sing perfectly. And we're going to hear you sing now because you got a new CD out, and let's take a track from it.
This particular track is from Chicago, which is All I Care About Is Love.
Thank you so much for talking to us today on the magic of the musicals on Broadway.
Alex, my pleasure. Thank you.